I wouldn't so much answer it by saying that we've reached out intentionally to atheists or agnostics, but how I would respond would be to say that while the Interfaith Center strives to have different religious communities in communication or dialogue with one another, another major emphasis of the Interfaith Center of New York is to have religious communities all around the city in dialogue with people in positions where they interact with the court system, with social workers, with the police department, so civil bodies, civil representatives, politicians, because of our separation of church and state in America. I'll give one small example. In the New York State court system, my sense is that 98% of the judges and administrators are Christian or Jewish, and yet probably over 50% of the people who are in the courts going through trial processes and whatnot are neither Christian nor Jewish, but are from other faith traditions. So the Interfaith Center for many years has had an education program targeted on judges and administrators of the court system so they understand better where the people who are before them are coming from religiously. One member of our delegation for this gathering here in Barcelona is Detective Jeff Thompson from the New York City Police Department. And he has worked for, I'm not sure how many years, but a number of years, in a special communications unit that works to resolve conflicts from a civil point of view, but many times those conflicts involve two different families or groups from different religious traditions. And so that's how religion is interacting around New York City and trying to educate the civil service agencies, police, politicians, court system, social workers, has been very important. In New York City, there are several very important Jewish social service agencies, and while they are under an umbrella of a Jewish organization, the social workers are oftentimes from many different faith traditions, and their clients who are receiving the social services are from even more varied faith traditions. And so the Interfaith Center has worked with several of these organizations to educate social workers about the people in whose homes they will be providing social services, to understand what it means to enter into a Pakistani Muslim home in Queens or a Afro-Caribbean faith tradition in Brooklyn. So interacting with those kinds of non-religious entities, state entities, civil entities, is an important focus of what the center is doing, or trying to do.
The actual discussion about the mosque in the Zero Zone, what's your opinion about that?
Well, we've had a pretty hectic time, especially since the visit to New York City by the Catalonia-Barcelona delegation and the Glasgow, Scotland delegation back in June of 2009, because fairly soon thereafter, Imam Faisal announced his plans to build an Islamic cultural center at near Ground Zero, and I want to be very clear that many people in the American press and maybe even elsewhere have called it the Ground Zero Mosque, but it is not in the footprint. It is several blocks away. But also Imam Faisal has been on the board of the Interfaith Center since 2007, when we invited half a dozen religious leaders who were part of our religious leader network to come on the board with our varied existing board members. And so we've had, that has placed the Interfaith Center in a situation where we hopefully can be in conversation with families who lost loved ones in the 9/11 tragic incident, and be in touch with some of the different religious communities who have a stake in this, not just Muslim, but Christian and Jewish and Hindu and others around the city. I have a list of the types of activities we've been involved with. We've been involved with a number of media efforts, a number of meetings with community boards around New York City, and you can see it's really quite a lengthy list, to try to, again, have people trying to understand what the project is really all about, and I think in particular to highlight that it's not just a mosque in a structure a few blocks from ground zero, but it really is a cultural center that would be open to people of all faiths, or people who were not people of faith. And there are other examples in New York City and in the United States of these kinds of cultural centers that are religious by name, but by practical application of what they offer, social services, musical concerts, lectures about a variety of civic and other topics, they are religious in name only and open to all people. And I think that is really the aim of the project proposed by Imam Faisal and his team. And so we've been trying to be in an objective position to mediate some conversations, while being mindful that Faisal is a board member.
Mm-hmm. How do you think this discussion will end?
Well, I would say that the Interfaith Center, as an organization, our staff and our board, believe very strongly in the right of freedom of religious expression in the United States. And we would hope that agreement can be made so that this project will go forward. Mm-hmm. I probably ought to leave it at that.
Which role do you think has the religion to develop in the social life, in politics? Which paper has to be the religion in politics?
Which people?
Which paper?
Oh, paper.
Which role? Which
sort of newspaper?
No. Which activity, what influence has the religion to be in politics? Which connection has to be between religion and politics, or has to be separated?
Well, I mean, by definition, in the United States, religion and politics are separated. The groups that, I use the example of Detective Jeff Thompson with the New York Police Department. He is part of a communications group within the police department. It's not a group that is defined by diffusing situations among religious communities. It could happen between two atheists. Their job is to go out and resolve these kinds of conflicts. I think that's an example, whereas my understanding in some other democratic countries, the government actually has people who are part of the government, counselors and department heads and bureau heads, who are very, very much charged with working with religious communities. And I think that's a different approach, whereas in New York and many parts of the United States, groups like the Interfaith Center, or groups from different religious traditions, are the ones who are the advocates for the different religious groups. Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. Whereas I said, I think it's a positive thing in some of the European countries. I just am not quite familiar enough early on in this visit to Barcelona here in Catalonia, how the government is advocating to help religious groups in the area, but that's my keen sense, is that the government takes on that role to help do some of the advocacy work to assure that the civil rights and matters relating to individual justice and community justice are being sought and attained.